Now, the good news is this. We can be renewed. We can be refreshed. We can be set on fire if we can continue in our sincerity and going hard after God, if we change the old mindset to a new mindset. But if you don't change your mindset, the way that you see God and the way that you understand that He sees you, you can fast and pray more and more, but I don't believe you will get the breakthrough that God has desired to give you. Now the key, one of the keys, God spoke to Abraham. We're going to look at John the Apostle for just a few minutes. But before we look at John, we're going to look at the key principle, one of the key principles. And God spoke this audibly to Abraham. Now we know that Abraham was the father of the faith. In many ways, you could say Abraham was the first covenant believer. He was the first believer in the way that we understand the Old and New Covenant. Now look at what the Lord said to him. He appeared to him in Genesis 15, verse 1. And the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. Now the Lord's standing before him in an open vision. And He says, Abraham, don't be afraid. I am your shield. Now here's the phrase. I myself, I am your exceeding great reward. Now the reason this was so significant is that God had promised Abraham great wealth, great fame, world impact, but then He tells Abraham, and all the finance I promised you, all the great impact, understand this. I am your great reward, not the impact you're going to make, but I myself am your exceeding great reward. Let's go to paragraph D. There's two main categories of God's favor or God's blessing or God's reward in our life. Two main categories. The first category I call our primary reward. And the second category is our secondary rewards. It's everything else. Our primary reward is Jesus Himself. And I don't mean just that He forgave us. I'm talking about revealing Himself to our heart where we feel His presence and our heart is fascinated and tenderized by Jesus Himself touching our heart. Now that's what the Lord told Abraham. I am your great reward. I myself will touch your heart. Now our secondary rewards are the things that God promises about money, about ministry, about relationships, etc., etc. Now the issue is this. Paragraph E. Our secondary rewards, we don't want them to hinder our primary reward. And that happens all the time. When God puts His blessing, the secondary rewards. Now, by the way, the secondary rewards are not unimportant. They're very important. But when the secondary rewards, like God's favor in finance or ministry or in relationships, etc., many categories in the secondary rewards, when the secondary rewards become primary, then our relationship with Jesus gets hindered. And it happens all the time. I see it all the time where people, under the blessing of God, they begin to lose the freshness of the relationship that they once had with the Lord. So the Lord said to Abraham, I am your exceeding great reward, not the other promises and the other blessings. So this is the principle that God establishes in the testimony of Abraham. Now we're going to apply it to John's life, Roman numeral 2. John the Apostle comes along, and the Lord gives him a very significant prophecy that marked his life. Now I'm asking the Holy Spirit to mark you with this prophecy right now, tonight. And then John, as he was marked by this prophecy, he fulfilled this thing God told Abraham about making Jesus his exceeding great reward. That's another thing I'm praying that will happen, that you will shift from your ministry being your number one reward, or a relationship, or the promise of wealth, or happiness in other ways. That will shift to the Lord himself becoming your primary reward. It says here in Mark chapter 3, Jesus called James and his brother John, they were two brothers. He called them sons of thunder. Now this was a prophetic name that marked their heart. Now the Lord is calling many of you tonight sons of thunder. In the way that I'm applying this passage tonight to this teaching, you can apply it to your heart. Now let's tell a little bit of the story here. John was only about 20 years old. Many think that he was about 18 or 19 years old. When the Lord looks him in the eyes and says, I'm going to give you a new name. You're not just John, but the way that God sees you, you are a son of thunder. Now this marked his heart, and it made John alert that God was about to do a mighty work in him. God was about to do a mighty work in him. So I'm wanting you to be alert that God is going to do a mighty work in some of you by drawing you to his heart as a son of thunder. Now, being a son of thunder described the way that John carried his heart with God and the way that he functioned in his ministry. Now, John started out being a son of thunder in his natural personality, in his fleshly personality. We're going to find out in a few minutes that John had a thunderous personality in a negative sense, in terms of his pride and his ambition. And all of us have some kind of thunder in the negative sense in our personality, whether it's disappointment or depression or bitterness or pride or lust or whatever. And the challenge is, God was going to transition John from a son of thunder in the natural to a son of thunder in the spirit. And that's what he wants to do with a number of you. And he wants to begin the process at a whole new level starting tonight. He wants to move you from a person that maybe has thunder of some sort in your natural personality, and he wants the thunder of his spirit to subdue that negative part of your personality, and he wants to ravish you by revealing the thunder of his heart towards you. Now let's turn to the top of page 2. John 21, verse 20. This is the key verse. And it may not look that way at a casual reading, but as we break this down, you're going to see that this passage is very, very significant. Now let's give the context to this passage. John 21, verse 20. Well, in John chapter 21, verse 20, what's happening is John has written 5 books of the Bible. Now, what an amazing privilege to be used by God to write 5 books of the Bible. And many scholars believe that the Gospel of John was the last of the 5 books. And to me, that's believable. That this is the final book that John wrote of the 5, and it's about 90 A.D. plus, and John is in his 90s.